My favorite Arctic Monkeys album is Humbug.
I found that the songs that I like the most from them are the horny ones.
Oh yeah, and they have some good horny songs.
They have some good horny songs, yeah. Like
Humbug is a super horny record.
Oh,
by the way.
Fuck yeah, yeah. Anyway, learning the ropes.
Welcome to Learning the Ropes, Season 1 finale. We're going to be rounding up, talking about the entire rock and wrestling era, the golden era of wrestling that we just went down exploring with Tyler. And next week, we'll be here with Season 2 of Learning the Ropes, where we start the new generation. Tyler, what are your thoughts on the whole journey that we've taken you so far?
I went from being kind of like meh with actually, you know what? Won't spoil that. It went from being meh to I like look or to like now where I'm like pumped to watch some matches now. Like I get get like excited to watch matches. At the beginning, it was like homework, but now I'm excited.
Hell yeah!
I'm an actual fan now of wrestling.
I'm also excited because
guys, we achieved the goal. Podcast over. He's a fan of wrestling now.
We're still on versions though, unfortunately. Wait, what?
We still got to get him. We still got to get him laid for one, and then two. We got to get him caught up. He's got to do all his homework still. He's got a long way to go. I just want to say I'm excited because Matt is fucked this episode because it's really loosely formatted.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Oh, Matt, you're gonna die.
Because we're gonna for those of you listening, oh hell yeah.
And I'm really drunk.
Like really?
I've graduated from tipsy when we first started drinking to when I first started talking to you to I've just realized I'm really drunk.
I'm like a cross.
That's bad, Matt, because I thought you were gonna stay like vaguely tipsy, and so I've started getting there because I thought it'd be funny if me and Tyler were the chaos ones.
This one's gonna be a mess, and that's
gonna be good. It's gonna be horrific to edit, but. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to count down, actually, through this, all of our top favorite matches, least favorite to favorite matches that we've done so far.
Before we recorded, we all went through and ranked 1 to 15, the 15 matches that we watched. I know there's only been 14 episodes, but there was a 2 for last week.
Yep.
So we went through and ranked all our 15 favorite matches. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start at 15, go up to 1, and we're going to say what currently we think. And then I actually went through all of the ratings that we did in the previous episodes, and we have what we thought of those matches then. And then I took the ratings and then sorted it so that it'll be kind of interesting to see, kind of remembering, just like without kind of prompting, thinking, trying to rank everything compared to what we thought of at that time of that match.
Mine has evolved. I have a story now.
Yeah, I think I definitely, I'm not gonna line up 1-to-1, and so I'm very interested to see like what numerically my top 15 list is so far, and what subjectively I feel like when I was prompted to make a top 15 list, what I ranked where.
Right, and I think part of it is just also getting context for matches. Like, it's really easy to early on rate a match really high until you watch a later match that's significantly better, and you're like, oh wait, that match that I rated 3 stars might actually be like a 1-star match now that I've seen more of what there is to see.
Which also adds to, as we get further, I don't know if you guys had the same thought, as we get further down the timeline, I imagine I'll be interested to see at least where, if we were to do eventually a full every match we've watched, like every episode ranking, which we shouldn't. It's going to be too many.
I will end my own life if that happens.
But it would be interesting to see like I imagine most of these will only fall further down the list. But yeah, because I think the only way that could work, and this is now a tangent again, the only way that it could work is like if we save these top 15 lists, and then we're like, now, like after the new generation era, which is going to be next, like just slot those matches, like add them to the list, and it's going to increase in number. And that would be not a Google form we fill out. That would be a homework we all have to do. And that all's going to get cut, but it's whatever.
You think I'm going to remember enough of this podcast to cut that?
Man, this is a train wreck already, boys.
Oh, hell yeah. We're gonna get into the structured part in a minute, you know?
Yeah, this is the loose beginning that everyone likes.
Generally speaking, over the course of everything we've watched so far, Tyler, thoughts on the wrestling?
Fuck Hulk Hogan.
Thank God.
Pack it up. We taught him everything he needs to know.
The only necessary things.
I don't give a shit how I ranked them in the past. Hulk Hogan's are all the bottoms for me. I don't care how I had them ranked in the past. It was all lies, all right? It was all lies. I saw it, like, having seen how it's progressed and ended, he's the worst era. And honestly, hot take, kind of Randy Savage too. I'm not really into it. Seeing how that ended, like how that whole arc ended, and how and like in hindsight, like just the sexism part of it, I'm just like, man, this did not age well. So like that whole era, I kind of have at the bottom.
Yeah, that's and what's really interesting is that
Bret Hart is the best wrestler of all time.
Thank you. Fuck you, Matt. I win.
Thank you, Matt, for saying.
We still have the new generation era.
We still have the entirety of the new generation for him to change his mind. We still have the entirety of when Sean hits his stride. Now,
that's a whole other can of worms. Because Matt, I would say. And this is, I guess, a spoiler. I would say Sean really hits his stride post-back injury. I think Sean's best work is from, like, post-back injury.
I don't want to have this discussion right now because it'll go way too long.
It'll be way too long and way too many spoilers. So,
but so what I was gonna say is what's interesting is that like in the new generation, in the list of matches that we have for the new generation, there is not a single, like, Hulk Hogan is gone. And that's because shortly after last week we saw him beat Yokozuna for the WWF title. SummerSlam comes around and he's already gone by SummerSlam. Like, he's left the company and we don't get to see him again. And Savage is also gone, Warrior is gone. A lot of these guys that like kind of define rock and wrestling at this point are all just gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be really interesting to see what Tyler thinks of what we have coming up. But now, let's look back, and let's start with the rating number 15. Tyler, what do you have at 15?
Can you guess?
I can guess because I think it's probably the same for me and Matt.
For all three of us, is it Yokozuna?
It is the same for all three of us. Yeah. We all have Yokozuna versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 9.
So yeah, we counted it as a separate match because it is.
Yep, and it was also our lowest rated match for all of us. We're all one of one in terms of matching our ratings from before.
Yeah.
All of us gave it 0 fucking stars out of 5. Not a good match.
Yeah. So this
really, I think that match really does define what the entire rock and wrestling era was, though.
I would say this match, I don't even think in terms of like what quote unquote the match is, it's a nothing thing. Like Hulk Hogan turns up, they give Yoko the excuse of like he just wrestled this match with Bret Hart to let Hulk Hogan squash him. They also had Mr. Fuji, throw sand in or salt in Yokozuna's eyes.
It was racist.
Mr. Fuji's the only, like... I don't know why I'm gonna die on that hill. That Mr. Fuji's the only kind of okay part of that, like that whole gimmick.
Maybe I don't know.
Because he's A, technically Japanese. B, the fact that they call him Mr. Fuji connects to what his actual
it's a little endearing.
Yeah, what his real last name is.
The fact that he has like the Imperial Japan flag is a little weird. I bet they made him do that.
But like, it's such a nothing match. And that's why I think the whole reason why we all put it at the bottom is because it's a truly baffling booking decision.
It's just a fuck you.
It's a huge fuck you. Which, like, granted, because it's Hulk Hogan's way, he didn't pitch it as a fuck you at the time. He was like, this is going to be like a little bit of a fuck you. Because like they were building this monster heel, so they want the monster heel to win, but they want to send the crowd home happy, so they let Hulk Hogan come out and win it. But then Hulk Hogan, in his way, went from, oh, it's a fuck you for now, but I'll drop the belt back to you, Bret, to Bret Hart is fucking small, and I refuse to drop the belt to him. Like, and it's just like, okay, this is one of the worst things to ever happen in wrestling. Like, that's a strong statement, but it's one of the, in terms of booking decisions, I think this is one of the like worst decisions that has ever been made in wrestling. It's up there with spoilers. I won't talk about it. It's fine.
I think it's up there with Katie Vick.
Almost as bad as 9/11.
It's up there with Matt. What I was gonna say is I think it's up there with Jinder.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Like
a nakedly, this is a stupid and weird booking decision. Which we'll get into Jinder Mahal long time from now. But there's just like, it's, how do you do this to the best wrestler ever? Like, how do you do this to Bret fucking Hitman Hart, dude? I don't know. Hulk Hogan's gotta go over, though.
It literally, it invalidates, even with all the like hand waving that they try to do, it invalidates the rising star in Bret Hart. And it kind of derails him for a little bit. Like, if we kind of look at looking forward a little bit, not to spoiler Tyler, but it derails him for a while.
Things get messy. That's what, and again, this is slightly spoilers for Tyler. I was going to say this before we actually got into the countdown. It's funny to me because I like that right now Tyler thinks Bret's the best. The new generation era is ultimately this is Bret versus Shawn the era. And so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But it really gets, like, the new generation era is known as like a bit of a mess.
Yeah, there's we'll get into really high highs and really low lows.
Some of the lowest lows in wrestling history. But all of that stuff with me and Matt as the two people with context to say, Tyler, give us your thoughts on number 15.
Oh, it's the worst match you've watched. Terrible. I think Hulk Hogan should be executed. What else? It's gross. It's the worst.
That does about sum it up. Now we're going to move on to number 14. Andrew, why don't you start us off with number 14?
At number 14, and I do mean this with respect to the bit, and to, like, the match and its thing, I have Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant.
That makes sense. Mine's higher than that, but honestly, that one could have gone anywhere.
Lot of fucking love to Andre the Giant. Watch the HBO documentary. Andre the Giant's a one-of-a-kind human being, obviously. There's never gonna be another Andre the Giant. It's... Andre couldn't move. Hulk Hogan's style is already boring. It's a one-spot match.
It was kind of a boring match.
That spot is iconic as hell. And I love that spot. Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant's one of the one things I'll praise Hulk Hogan for. it was kind of a chore to watch. It's.
I'm not gonna disagree with you. I much like Tyler. I have it higher up than this, but
I
I'll
could
be
have put it
interested
here
to
and
see
be
where
happy,
you
to be
guys
honest.
have it.
for me, it's about the spectacle of it, though. And I'll talk more about this when we get to my rating for it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents in here. Is I think the match quality isn't what makes it special.
Fuck the spectacle is my hot take on that.
What'd you say?
Fuck the spectacle is my hot take on that.
Valid. I think that's like the fuck the spectacle angle is very valid, especially like now, because it's one of those things where like growing up watching wrestling, you see that slam shown a whole bunch of times. I don't know if it's still. I assume it still is. It definitely used to be part of like literally the WWE logo intro for every fucking show. Not to mention the fact that, and we'll get to them, the multiple times that WWE pays explicit tribute to that spot. It's one of the biggest things to ever happen in wrestling, but the perspective of modern times on it, is kind of why I put it so low, is because I'm just like, it's the spectacle, and it's like Citizen Kane to me. You have to give it its due, but I think that iterating on it has made better product, ultimately.
So, based on the match ratings at the time, number 14 for Mr. Andrew Kadrich is The Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan at Survivor Series 1991.
That's genuinely way higher on this list.
Tyler!
Hi!
What do you have at number 14?
Not gonna lie, kind of just the bottom 5 matches I kind of just shotgunned anything that had Hogan in it, basically. I had Ultimate Warrior just because I kind of forgot that we watched that match. And we haven't heard about Ultimate Warrior since that match. And maybe it was a good match, maybe it was a bad match. I don't really have a memory of it, is the problem.
Understandable.
Yeah, that's understandable. It is kind of much like every other Hogan match, it's kind of a nothing match.
It's kind of a dud. They're all kind of duds, but they all got kind of like ranked higher. Like, so like I think I may have had it kind of high when you watched it, but then watching more Hogan after that, it's just the kind of thing where it's like you see it over and over again, and then you like see how it ends, and it never concludes well. It's always just the same shit until he quits.
Yeah, I think the very early parts of this podcast was just us comparing Hogan matches to
other Hogan matches, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and so that drives some of these Hogan matches higher up in terms of the at the time ratings compared to now that we have, like I said, more context, and we've seen Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper and all these other matches, so we know we have better understanding of where it actually ranks. Tyler, do you want to hear what was actually at number 14 for you?
For me, yes.
It was the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks at SummerSlam 1988.
Wait.
You ranked that match 2 stars.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Did you say what I gave Hogan Andre?
I did not. You gave it 1.5 stars. Or
nice.
Hogan Andre? No.
Oh,
Undertaker yeah. Hogan, you gave 1.5 stars.
Okay.
We'll get to what you gave Hogan Andre when it comes up on the list.
Sounds good.
Yeah, when it comes back up on like the at the time ratings list.
Sounds good.
And so one thing, because some of these matches we rated the same, there are ties, and I'm just gonna go with what by default it sorted that match into. So there are other matches, Tyler, that you ranked the same as the Mega Powers versus Mega Bucks, but that is the one that ends up the lowest just purely because of however Google decided to rank to sort these.
I love this episode, by the way. I love that we're formatting it while recording. It's my favorite thing.
It's kind of my fault because I just started recording. I had intended to like talk about this beforehand.
I'm eating Cheetos right now. What's up, boys?
I love that, like, because I haven't heard you eating on the mic this whole time, and then you're like, I'm eating Cheetos right now, and then a very deliberate crunch directly into the microphone is like, okay, I'm announcing this is happening from now on.
Exactly. Correct.
Anyway, my number 14 was the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks from SummerSlam 1988, but the historic, based on the ratings that we did at the time, my number 14 match is The Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan, which I rated 1 whole star.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get into where I'm gonna have to explain myself on a couple of ratings, I think.
Yeah.
On this list.
So for me, the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks was like the most ultimate Hulk Hogan nothing match to me. Though
it's your actual number 14.
Yeah, that's my number 14 in terms of
your subjective number 14, not your
No. Oh. It is the number 14 that I picked earlier today.
What I will say about mine too is that, like, I think any Hogan match could be like in the bottom 5, and you could argue like kind of like anyway for it from my perspective.
I agree with that for some of them,
except Andre.
Yeah, I think for me this one, Andre and this one, I think stand out. I think we'll get to it. I think Andre is one of the better Hogan matches for the spectacle, but I think this one, even though it's supposed to have all the spectacle because it's the Mega Powers, it's Macho Man and Hulk Hogan.
It's kind of boring.
It's really boring because it's Andre even older.
We're doing wrestles,
This is Andre, like, I mean, it's later that same year for WrestleMania 3. Or no, it's the year after WrestleMania 3. But it's still like, Andre's a year older, Hogan's a year older, and it just isn't great. Andre, like, is struggling to move the whole time. The only highlight of this match was Ted DiBiase.
He was, I think I like remember that being fun, and then we never see him again.
Yeah.
As is the way.
That's also a thing, because Tyler, you talked about how Macho Man kind of fell down your list too.
Yeah.
Ultimate, as a disclaimer for the audience, for anybody at any time listening to the Rock and Wrestling season of Learning the Ropes podcast, absolutely, we could have watched way the fuck more Macho Man. Like, we could have watched a lot more Macho Man. We could have watched a lot more Ted DiBiase. We're trying to, Matt and I are trying to structure this going forward in a certain way for Tyler, and for how we perceive, like, the overarching big waves of wrestling. And so, yeah, like, this match, like, the Mega Powers and Mega Bucks is, like, the saving grace of it is kind of the $1 Million Man. And we could have watched way more of the $1 Million Man, but, like, I definitely don't think he's quite enough to save that tag match.
Exactly. It's like he's the highlight, but it's not enough for me. Now we're going to move on to number 13. Andrew, what's your number 13 pick?
My number 13 is Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior. I appreciate that this match genuinely feels like two icons of wrestling, both of which almost can't, like, nigh unbeatable, and that they are fighting each other. Both of them are the same shtick, and that shtick is the worst fucking shtick in wrestling history. Like, it's just not good. It's the Super Stina thing, which we'll get to. And I don't like it. They both just throw fucking rest holds on each other, hit a couple of, like hit or not actually hit a couple of, like, protect the leg drop or whatever the fuck, and it's over. And they're both just two muscle-bound dudes who move real slow. Like, and Ultimate Warrior's a muscle-bound dude who will gas himself in his own entrance. And then, like, rest in peace, the Warrior. Absolutely iconic to this era of wrestling. Not very good by my standards.
Hey, that's you know what? That's fair enough.
Yeah.
And, do you want to hear what you actually rated at number 13?
Yeah.
You rated at number 13 with 2 whole stars. The Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks at SummerSlam 1988.
Okay, yeah. That feels like I'm with Tyler on that. The spoiler alert is there's a very definite point on my list where Hulk Hogan's name stops showing up.
I feel like that could be said for all of our lists. That I'm looking at my list, and yeah, there's the Hogan section.
There's the Hogan block at the bottom. and that's a spoiler, I guess, for the rest of this episode. But there's the Hulk Hogan block at the bottom, and I have my reasons for why I picked certain things over other certain things in that Hogan block, but there's a definite point where Hogan stops, and it's not at the top of this list.
What I find interesting so far, though, is that everything, even though the matches themselves haven't lined up for the most part, I mean, all of us had the same number 15, both in terms of like our ratings at the time and our current rankings. All of our bottoms so far, both at the time and now, all our Hulk Hogan matches so far. And I'm interested to see the point where that changes, to see if that changes at any point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now, Tyler, what is your number 13?
All right, so I just look like a giant drag. So let's keep this going. I got a Hogan versus Savage. This was after their like they fought or whatever, you know. They had their little like their little like team breakup.
Mega Powers explode, baby.
Yeah. Just because the more that I look back on it, the more I don't give a shit, and the more I don't like either of them. And then the whole thing with like Elizabeth, I'm just like, that was stupid. Just like I think at the time it was fine, but like the more that I sit with it, like you know, like now I just don't care. And like the parts that like I do care about, I'm just like, and that's just kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
That and like, I mean, it's a fun match to watch, but again, like what we've been saying, it's a Hogan match.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same thing that we've seen with a different opponent. Like with Hogan, like I feel like the thing that you're watching for is how cool is his like opponent gonna be, and then how are they gonna lose. That's what it always is, and it's just kind of lame.
Now, your actual number 13, Tyler, with 2 whole stars, once again, Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, see? They're all right there.
They're all just kind of, they're all clumped up at the bottom.
I kind of shotgunned these at the bottom. I was like, yeah, whatever.
That's kind of what I did too. I'm 1000% with you, Tyler. I have my arguments for why I put certain Hogan matches over other certain Hogan matches. And so we'll get into, when it comes up on my list, we'll get into my thoughts on Hogan versus Savage. But like, I would not begrudge anybody for putting like any Hulk Hogan match in any position on this list below a certain number, other than putting Yoko versus Hogan at 15. Like that's the only one I feel like you definitely have to put at the bottom.
Absolute dog shit.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Now, my number 13 match was The Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan. Now, I think this might have been one of the best episodes of Learning the Ropes in terms of like when we recorded it. Because
wasn't it like the second episode?
Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan, no.
Oh wait, sorry. Yeah, okay. I misheard. I thought it was Andre.
No. Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan from Survivor Series 1991.
Yeah. That's interesting that it's lower for you.
I think it was one of the better episodes, but that was because of everything that was surrounding the match.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The match itself was really boring. And actually, surprising me, at the time ratings, my number 13 match is Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, which I gave 2 stars. Which surprises me because, as we'll see, it's rated quite a bit higher than 13 for me.
I can't wait until like Matt's like number 3 match is Hogan versus Andre. Like, and me and Tyler are like we're Iron Sheik boys. We're fuck the Hulk Hogan.
Fuck the Hulk Hogan, yeah.
But yeah, I can't wait till Matt, I cannot wait until I find out where Hogan Andre is on your list.
Honestly,
because like I respect the spectacle of that, and that's not talking about where you put Hogan versus Undertaker, but I definitely get why Hogan versus Undertaker is at your number 13. It's
important in that it's the Undertaker's first WWF title reign. Yeah, it's important in that it helps establish that character, but I think if you just watch the match, it's really bad.
Yep.
Even the spectacle of it, I don't think is even there for me. Because, it's cool in that you haven't really seen Hogan be beaten that way before.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been so much better if he actually just fucking broke his neck and died.
Yes.
Is this so Hogan versus Undertaker? Let me see. I'm looking at my own list to remember results of stuff. Hogan versus Undertaker, I think, is the only Hogan match we've watched on the show where he lost.
Correct.
Other than one technicality, which is the Royal Rumble 1992.
But that's a Royal Rumble match. It doesn't count.
A loss for anybody. Yeah. So, it's the only Hogan match where he loses. But yeah. Hogan's shtick is always boring, no matter who it's really up against.
Yeah. For sure. Now, Andrew, what is your number 12?
My number 12 is The Mega Powers Explode. Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage. My reason for putting this above Hogan versus the Warrior and Hogan versus Andre the Giant is that where Andre the Giant, Hogan versus Andre to me is iconic but boring because Andre can't move and Hogan is bad. Hogan versus Warrior to me is I understand on an intellectual level that this is 2 unbeatable icons of wrestling fighting each other. To me, Hogan versus Savage is the real, in terms of my own personal investment, it's the real feeling of what Hogan versus Warrior is supposed to be. I really like the Macho Man because of his promos, because of matches we'll get to later down the line. I hate Hulk Hogan, but I understand, I respect him as the icon of wrestling that he is. And
I don't respect him as the icon of wrestling. It's a disgrace to America and says that we are a bad people.
See, that to me, I agree with you, Tyler. I respect Hogan not as a human being. He sucks as a human being. I'll put it on a real level. In my opinion, he's a terrible human. But in terms of he carried wrestling from a kind of carny sideshow attraction to he's kind of the engine that Vince nationalizes WWF on. And I respect that, and that he was super over as a superhero for the fans. And so I put Savage versus Hogan over Warrior versus Hogan because I'm to me, Randy Savage is probably one of the better wrestlers going in that era. And so that's why he actually feels this is a super guy wrestling Hulk Hogan. Whereas the Warrior to me is a cool gimmick and a cool character that fails to actually invest me. I actually root for Randy Savage against Hulk Hogan, even though Savage was heel, but who cares? Hulk Hogan is the eternal heel. Fuck Hulk Hogan forever.
Hulk Hogan.
What was my numerical number 12,
it's not. Never mind.
Your number 12 at the time was Hogan Andre.
Fair enough.
With 2 stars. So you originally rated this and the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks at the same star rating.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much more to say about that match
really
at this point.
There's not a lot to say about Hulk Hogan for me, and that's the problem with him, is that it's like, dude, you watched a Hogan match? Yeah, he was put in rest holds, and then he hit the leg drop and won. And that's it. And that was the era of wrestling that he made.
Yeah.
Now, number 12.
Number 12, Tyler.
Mine is the Mega Power versus the Mega Bucks. I think we kind of already talked about it enough for me to not go on like a huge tangent about it. But yeah, it was just a kind of boring match, the same as the rest. I like Ted. He was fun, but he couldn't, I mean, he was fun to watch, but like he even couldn't like carry it. Like it was still like an overall kind of like boring match. So yeah, kind of already talked about this one. I don't have much to add to that.
It's one of those that you almost forget we watched.
Yeah, I did forget we watched it until I saw it on the list. I'm like, which match was this? I'm like, that's right.
Your actual number 12, your at the time rating number 12, Tyler, with 2 stars, was the Royal Rumble match from Royal Rumble 1992. Tear in my eye. Ric Flair rated real low.
I could see how at the time that's how I would vote it, but now, interesting.
It's real interesting coming off the heels. I mean, because this episode's gonna come out the same week that we recorded, so coming off the heels of Ric Flair's last match, it's actually really interesting to go back and watch this one too.
Yeah.
Now my number 12 was Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior. Now, this one for me is at this point specifically because it's one of those failed Hulk Hogan pass the torch moments.
Yeah.
They were really like, here you go, Warrior, you're going to be the new Hulk Hogan, and then he just wasn't.
Well, yeah, which that also reveals the lie I was wrong earlier when I said that The Undertaker's the only match Hogan lost. He also lost
he loses
Warrior.
this one, right.
I'm a dumbass and also lightly drunk. It's fine.
Now my number 12 at the time was the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks with 2 stars. Yeah, those matches are interchangeable to me. Yep. They're big. It's going to be interesting once we get out of this Hogan clump. It was a little interesting to see the Royal Rumble match for Tyler rated so low originally, but it'll be a lot more interesting when we get to the matches that I think all of us think were good, but that I think there'll be a lot more discussion in terms of placement once we get to the higher up matches.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew.
Number 11. Number 11 for me was, this is where I put the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks. And my reason why for that is that it's a tag match. And so for me, at least, we get a little bit of respite from the Hulk Hogan shtick when Hulk Hogan has to stand on the apron and let Macho Man wrestle. Bless you.
Thank you.
And so I think, and that's the thing I think we'll see going forward is that, bless you again, tag team matches get to be a little bit better sometimes than singles matches. I think most of my favorite matches all time are singles matches, but tag team wrestling has this wonderful quality of everybody, you can have more fast-paced action and more interchangeable matchups in the middle of the match by having the ability to have people tag out. And so that's kind of why I put the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks up here. It's just because I'm it doesn't always have to be about Hulk Hogan. Ted DiBiase fucking bumps his ass off to sell for everybody. Other than that, it's kind of bullshit. It's interchangeable with pretty much every other Hulk Hogan match. Shout out to Miss Elizabeth, that iconic bit. Good for her, I guess. question mark. It's all whatever. It's all interchangeable.
I
It's
thought
the
you were
Hulk
gonna
Hogan
say
block.
that iconic bitch.
Dude, Miss Elizabeth is an iconic bitch in wrestling, baby.
Not in the derogatory term,
Not
but
in a derogatory way. Fucking
but
love
in the-
Miss Elizabeth. She's
in
not
the,
in the
like,
Hall of Fame. She should be.
yeah, in like the bad bitch kind of way. We were a progressive audience.
Yeah, she a baddie.
Podcast.
And
Now your
yeah, I don't know.
actual number 11, Andrew.
Yeah?
Once again, cementing the interchangeability of all Hulk Hogan
It's another
matches.
2.0, baby.
It's 2.5 stars this time, but it's Hogan Warrior.
You know what? I'm gonna say right now, to put a little bit of shadow on most of my Hulk Hogan ratings so far in the show. I rated Hulk Hogan in like the 2-ish star range because I felt like it would be a little bit too like I'm a modern younger wrestling fan to rate all of Hogan's matches 1 star or below. I think Hulk Hogan's a 1-star wrestler, and he was carried above 2 stars by most of the people he wrestled on this show.
I can agree with that for sure.
I
Tyler,
think. I'm sorry to interrupt again.
you're good.
I'll drop this now. I think my dad will be happy with me for the fact that like I'm relatively praising of Ric Flair relative to Hulk Hogan.
And that's what this podcast is really about, making Andrew's dad happy.
Yeah, my dad used to watch Ric Flair wrestle in the territories, brother. Like he went to Jim Crockett shows.
Yo, we got to watch a Jim Crockett show last night.
We did. Ric Flair's last match, he almost died. I was horrified.
Faked a heart attack.
Some like
He
it.
did.
I don't know about faked. Definitely like.
Tyler will watch it after we record it.
Hulk Hogan versus number 11. Hulk Hogan versus Andre.
Fair enough.
It's gonna be a hot take. Yeah, it's the slam beat at the time for me as somebody who was new, having watched like modern wrestling. I was like, like even like at the time when I watched it, I think I ranked it higher because of like the spectacle. But since watching that match, I've come to not care about it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't really like spectacle either because like the most fun that I've had has been matches that weren't important. I feel like, and to me, that's what I kind of like rate the highest. Like obvious things now is it fun to watch in like if you can like kind of if you can like keep the like whole story like in one match, that I think puts it like higher for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't with I think you can't with this really. So
yeah,
that's understandable. I understand that. Now, Tyler, your number 11 at the time.
Is it gonna be a Hogan match?
It is Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. Give it 2.5
He got
stars. You got it right on the mark.
Woo!
Right on the money, baby.
My girlfriend's gonna be so proud. She doesn't watch the show.
Now, my number 11 match: Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage from WrestleMania 5. I think this is one of the better Hogan matches. I think Savage carries him really well. Savage being the perfectionist he is, I still really appreciate this match, even though I know there are a lot of better matches. But yeah, this is to me one of the top tier Hogan matches that we've seen.
Fair enough. Understandable, honestly.
Yeah. And at number 11, at the time, with 2.5 stars, was Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty at the Royal Rumble 1993.
Interesting. I can't wait to see where that is on your list now.
Yeah, I mean,
probably not too much higher, but you know,
I'll talk about that when we get to it on the list. It's just, yeah. Anyway, Andrew, number 10.
So this is the funny one to me, especially now that like as we're getting through this list. Number 10 for me, actually cracking top 10 matches so far on the show. The Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan, Survivor Series 1991.
That's right. That's right.
I have no real defense of this outside of the fact that I'm a huge mark for The Undertaker, as we will see as we continue down the line for this show.
I'm gonna spoil a little bit. You know who's also a huge mark for The Undertaker, and who also has us at number 10? This motherfucker right here.
Fuck yeah!
I think it's interesting for Andrew because this is his, at the time, second lowest rating Hogan match. The only one that's lower is Yoko Hogan.
Yeah,
but this cracks the top 10 for him this time around.
10 for me, because I love The Undertaker.
He almost kills Hogan. That's pretty cool, right? No matter what they say.
Hulk Hogan. Also, I think it sort of. And this is bullshit, by the way, because I understand absolutely why anybody else would rate it low. Why, like Matt, why you would rate this lower. But I think that the Undertaker's shtick at the time actually is like his character works to do to Hulk Hogan what Hulk Hogan's character made everybody else do to him.
Paul Bear, come on.
Yeah. Because, like, The Undertaker's whole thing at the time was, like, I'm going to strangle you in the corner. Because he wanted to move slow as, like, this zombie undead magic guy. And that he literally, to his own, he said this out loud and confirmed it. He had to tone down his own work rate to sell the character. And so I think that him having to do that makes him fit better into Hogan's shtick than like Randy Savage does or like the Ultimate Warrior does. Like, because he has to, like, his whole thing at the time is doing to Hulk Hogan what Hulk Hogan wants done to him. And then they let Taker win, baby. They let my boy win. And that's, for people that listen to this, to me, there's a Mount Rushmore of wrestling. And then there's a second taller mountain called The Undertaker. Like, he's absolutely set aside from everybody else. I won't call him the GOAT, like, in terms of in-ring work, but he's a singular entity to wrestling. And so I can't not love him. He's the fucking Undertaker. Like, how can you hate it?
Well, Tyler, you rated it the same. What are your thoughts?
He's the most fun character I think we've seen so far. Like Bret Hart's cool. I think Bret and Shawn are the coolest characters, but like they're not the most like fun, I guess. But like I always like the whole, you know, like insane character thing, and like his whole stick is fun. It's kind of stupid, it's kind of goofy, and like it's fun to watch. And my man can fly through the sky. There's a fucking flying kick he does in that match that like is burned into my skull, and it's great. He almost kills Hogan.
Just wait. If you want to see the Undertaker flying, just wait.
Yeah, like I said, Tyler, no spoilers. Also, the Undertaker is like actively toning himself down.
Like, of the people that we've watched, I think he's the person that I'm most he's like who I want to see like the most of more. So it's like I think if this was not Hogan, it'd be a higher match for me. But the fact that it's Hogan means that it's just the best of the worst.
Best of the worst is pretty much exactly how I would describe why I put Taker Hogan up here.
Yeah.
Now, Tyler, you're at the time number 10 is gonna ruffle some feathers, I feel like.
Okay.
Your at the time number 10 was Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat from WrestleMania 3.
Whoo!
You know, to be honest, I think my actual answer is gonna also cost some stuff because yeah, okay, that's
You're
fine.
like actual number 3, or like where you actually put Savage Steamboat?
Where I actually put that match.
I'm excited.
It's
higher than Hogan.
Of course.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, you're missing a Hogan match.
Yeah, it's maybe not numerically higher than Hogan.
Technically, I'm missing one, but yeah.
There
taking a hit.
There are 2 Hogan matches that you're missing still from your at the time ratings, and it'll be interesting to see where those end up.
Yeah.
Now, my number 10, Andrew, you were wondering where I actually rated Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty, where you don't have to wait that much longer.
It's number 10.
Number 10.
Valid, to be honest. I want to hear your reasoning, though.
I mean, the rivalry. It's not even the rivalry's iconic. That one specific moment is iconic, but I think the match was kind of nothing. Hearing about like the backstage shenanigans, it just of like Marty not really knowing what's going on and stuff. It's like as the Shawn Michaels mark of this podcast, it does hurt me to say this, but like you compare it to another match where someone had to carry someone in in Bret Hart versus British Bulldog, and that's leagues ahead of this. And it's not, I don't think it's to disparage this match particularly to put it like number 10. Number 10's not that low. I just think that everything else to me was better than this match. And actually what's interesting to me as well is that my number 10 at the time was Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage for WrestleMania 5. So I basically just switched those two.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Because, and I agree that it's not to disparage, because kind of the way that I feel about this list, as I'm looking at my list right now, is that, like, all of the Hulk Hogan matches for me, like, as long as it cracks the top 10, and that's good. And that's why, for me, it's like, I have my top 10-ish, and then all of the Hogan matches are like, well, I'm obligated to rate them because we watched them on the show.
Right, and I think it's... part of it is that we saw 15 matches and like 10 of them were really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? So obviously one of them has to come last of the good matches, and for me that's Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty.
Understandable.
Andrew, what is your number 9?
My number 9. A match I had way more fun with, especially watching it with you guys, than I had ever had fun with it before or expected to have fun with it. Yokozuna versus Bret Hart. From WrestleMania 9.
Interesting. That's going to cause hot takes for me, I think, now where I put mine.
That's, I mean, fair enough. I wouldn't disparage anybody for putting this higher. Like, I had a surprising amount of fun with this match, because I thought of Yokozuna and Bret Hart as like, this is going to be like a kind of slow
homework match.
Yeah, like a bit of a homework match. I think Bret Hart carries off a lot of, like, he showcases a lot of some of his smartest, like, I guess I shouldn't credit Bret exclusively, even though I am wont to, like, some of the smartest spot planning that we've seen so far for me from Bret Hart. Like, I'm a huge fan of that bit where he ties Yoko's leg up in the ropes when he's trying to get back in the ring. I fucking love the spot where he locks in the sharpshooter on Yokozuna. I was not expecting to have as much fun in that match as I ended up having. Yokozuna even carries his part of the match to me to like a degree that I was't expecting him to.
He's fun to watch. He's really fun to watch.
Like, all absolute credit to Yoko. Rest in peace. Like, he's an iconic bit of wrestling for me. Because I was more familiar with when he used to tag with Owen. But yeah, I very much was surprised by how much I liked this match. And that's kind of why I put it at number 9. Is because I still think it's marred by the Hogan bits after it. It's it's kind of still marred a little bit by, I feel like it's a little bit by its length, a little bit by like the other matches that I rank higher than it, really. But yeah, I was surprised at how much I liked this match. I'm so glad I get to be positive about matches pretty much going forward.
Let's go, yeah. Begins now.
We're out of the Hogan block, baby.
Now, your number 9 at the time, Andrew. was Yokozuna versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania
I got
9
it! I'm a winner!
with 3 stars.
3 stars. And yeah, I will stand by that, I think, by my 3-star rating of this match.
Now, I'm going to cut into the order that we've been kind of, the cycle we've been going on just for a little bit, because my number 9 was also Yokozuna versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9.
All for it. Hell yeah.
I agree with Andrew. I mean, so something that's interesting about watching these matches, that me and Andrew watch all of these matches twice, because we want to come up with talking points just in case, like, we need to guide the conversation a certain way. So we'll watch them twice. And the first time, I distinctly remember, I mean, it was just last week, I distinctly remember watching this match with Andrew and not really feeling it. But then watching it again, I got so much more hyped, even though I like, since we picked this match as a match we were going to do, like, obviously I knew that Bret Hart loses this match, but it does what Hogan Andre does in a more realistic way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in the Bret Hart way. More realistic.
In the Bret Hart way. Wrestling was always still real for Bret Hart.
Yeah.
And Andrew, not only was Yokozuna versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9 number 9 for me,
you also got it?
at number 9 in at the time ratings was Yokozuna versus Bret Hart versus WrestleMania 9 with 3.25 stars.
I give it, what'd you say? I give it, what, 3.5?
You gave it 3 solid.
Yeah, 3 solid feels good enough. I definitely, I might go up. I don't know. I had way more fun with that than I thought I would.
For sure. Now, number 9 for Mr. Tyler Ostos, what do you got?
I'm smoking, so I need to walk back to my room.
Get back in here, Snoop Dogg.
Shit, yeah, I had to get a hit.
He's blazing.
Blazing, boys, blazing.
Are we allowed
Randy...
to talk about that? I don't know.
It's legal in all of the states we live in.
Yes.
All right, cool. We're all set.
JB making it legal. Big JB.
Big Gretch making it legal over here.
Well, yeah, number 9. I got Randy Savage versus Ric Flair.
Cool.
That's gonna ruffle some feathers in the people who listen.
Maybe.
This is gonna make it worse. I forgot we watched that match, and I'm not entirely sure what happens in it.
Honestly, you know what? I completely understand that. I think
I don't know who won. I don't know who won or lost it.
Our boy Randy Savage won.
Yeah, Randy Savage.
That's what
won.
I figured. Yeah, but still, I watched the match and I have no recollection.
We talked about how Ric Flair gets his ass kicked for most of it, and then I
mean,
understand. That's the Rumble too, but yeah.
Yep.
I do understand forgetting this match. I think it was also a week where we recorded like a few at a time, like in that week.
2 or so episodes.
Yeah, so I completely understand kind of just forgetting it. Tyler, you're number 9 at the time. Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty from the Royal Rumble 1993 with 3 stars.
Okay, that's fine. They're pretty close. Yeah.
I feel like they're close. I kind of agree with that.
Hey, it's not my current ranking. It's better. But yeah.
Hindsight's 2020. Andrew, what you got at number 8?
Number 8 is where I put Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty from the Royal Rumble 1993. I had fun with this match. Obviously, the Rockers breaking up is iconic. The barbershop window is iconic. Even I had a lot of fun with the bit about like Marty Jannetty hitting Sensational Sherry with the mirror. I had fun with this match. To be perfectly honest, I think part of the reason why it's low, because I think the work rate is pretty decent in that match. Like, Marty Jannetty, I think, is the kind of wrestler that could carry, at least at the time, a decent match with Shawn. but I genuinely think part of why I rank this match lower is because of Marty Jannetty's relatively lackluster career following. And I don't mean that to disparage Marty Jannetty himself. It's just one of those things where I was like, yeah, in my head, this match is part of Shawn Michaels becomes arguably, I disagree, the GOAT. Like, and Marty Jannetty, him abandoning Marty Jannetty is part of the walkway to that. And so I'm just like, yeah, you know, Marty Jannetty wrestles this pretty serviceable match and then doesn't really make a ton out of himself in the WWF following that. And so it's like pretty entertaining spots, pretty entertaining in ring work, relatively messy despite how like talented I think both guys are. And then the match is over and Shawn wins and is onward and upward to bigger and better things, and Marty Jannetty is eventually out of the company. And that's just kind of why I put this match relatively low.
That's fair enough.
I like how I say relatively low, because in my head it's like everything that's top 10 down is like the actual thing. And
yeah.
So like Michaels versus Jannetty is like half-ish way through the list for me, but it's like, no, it's pretty low.
Well, your actual number 8, Andrew.
Yeah?
Was Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty at the Royal Rumble 1993 with 3 stars.
I'm so fucking good at this, I tell you. I'm the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. To borrow a nickname from the GOAT, Bret Hart.
Tyler, what's your number 8?
I'm pretty sure it's the Royal Rumble.
You're pretty sure? Are you not looking?
Again, I have to do things.
He's Snoop Dogging. He's taking another hit.
You know what? I could get you. Wait, you know what? I can do it on my phone.
Yeah, you can look at it on your phone. Because by the way, I was gonna say you're not like, you're not smoking like at your computer?
Nah.
Valid.
I'm smoking like a joint. I can't be. It's the Royal Rumble. I didn't like this when we watched it that much because we watched it at like midnight and I was exhausted. But in hindsight, they just beat the shit out of Ric Flair for an hour, and it's fucking fun. It's funny.
Yeah.
The fucking Bulldog shows up, like it's like so it's more fun now having met more of the characters that were in that, you know.
Yeah.
Having like meeting people that were in it, it's more fun in hindsight than when I saw it at the time.
I think I'm taking up too much airspace right now, but I was gonna say I've met 2 of my goals so far, and I'm working on the 3rd, and clearly I'm making progress of like what I personally want to impress on Tyler in wrestling. He currently thinks Bret Hart is the GOAT, so I'm currently winning. Connor, my fucking friend Connor.
McGregor, wrestling now. No, he's not.
Tyler likes The Undertaker, which I'm also all for, because Undertaker's one of my faves. Also, I want to slowly get Tyler into the Royal Rumble as a match, because the Royal Rumble's the best thing WWE does. And so I'm glad that you ranked this relatively high compared to like all the Hulk Hogan stuff, and I'm glad that your opinion on like the Royal Rumble as a concept, it definitely, I think, requires that, like you said, like having met more of the characters that are in it, improves your thinking on it. It absolutely requires that you're like familiar with more of the wrestlers.
And it'll be interesting as we kind of get to more Royal Rumbles, what Tyler thinks about them, especially as we get to Royal Rumble surprise appearances.
Yep.
Now,
it's
Tyler,
one of the best things about wrestling.
Tyler, I said that you were missing some Hogan matches from your bottom 10.
Ah, yes. This is what you meant. Yes.
At the time, at number 8 was The Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan with 3 stars.
Huh. Okay. Interesting.
So a delta of like
It's not that far off from where I had it
Yeah.
anyway. It's just like 2 matches away, I think.
3.
Well, it depends how
Yeah,
you count it, right? If you count the 0, it's 3, I guess, sure.
No, if you count the 0, it's 4. It was
fuck,
number.
you're right.
Oh wait, no, you're right. I was looking at the wrong match. No, yes, you're correct. It's 2/3. Okay,
Putting that,
I'm dumb.
putting that degree to work.
By the way, I want to continue the trend where like the Roundup episodes are our least sober episodes of all things. We're all just like
You're
it's super
required to drink
formatted, and we're all like
high
we're all,
or
like,
drunk.
varying definitions of not sober.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: is that halfway through this episode, it decided to also start smoking pot.
Yeah, so I think next time I will get crossed as well. You know what? Great idea. You know what? I'm gonna do a shot right now, and then I'm gonna go finish my joint.
That's my my issue right now. Matt and Tyler both is that I have given up. I had a like a vape that I would use for like weed, and I've given that up because I really desperately want to train to be a pro wrestler, and so I want to stop like smoking stuff. And so all I have is edibles. I could take one. I won't though, because I work tomorrow.
No, that's fair.
Well,
no,
I
an edible's a different beast, though.
Yeah,
With weed,
exactly.
though, yeah, that's fair. I guess it's
That's
true.
why I'm sticking to the whiskey for right now.
I'm doing a shot.
Based.
Done.
Almost all of this is getting cut. It's fine.
No, it's staying in.
I trust Matt to hopefully cut most of it.
Yeah, this is probably so. We have gotten so much better at podcasting in general that the last couple, I literally just trimmed out like the beginning, the end, and then the middle bit when we watch the match, and then just put them up on online.
That's the best part.
Yeah, we always cut the bits where we're actively watching the matches. Because some of these matches, like the Royal Rumble, to put it on, because we're still on Tyler's number. What are we at, 9?
8.
Yeah, 8. Like we are like at the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is like an hour long. Like we can't just let the reactions play out.
We're also not talking during the entirety of it, and so we can't. It would be interesting as like supplemental like
match
commentary tracks.
Content.
Yeah, but like as a podcast medium, it requires people to be watching that match at the exact same point that we start.
Yeah.
Now, my number 8 was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. I have the highest rated Hogan match out of all of us.
Yep.
Now look.
Yeah, talk about why. Talk about why.
You are on trial. Just yeah.
A little bit on trial.
This is not a judgment-free zone.
Because Matt, I'm gonna preempt you right now. I know you're gonna say the spectacle. Otherwise, you're on trial.
Matt, this is not a safe space, okay?
Yeah,
it's not.
This is an actively antagonistic space.
It's hostile.
So it was the kind of thing when I was ranking these matches. It was the kind of thing where I didn't know where to put this match the entire time, and it would be like it kept getting shuffled around. Like basically every single, because we all did this like kind of one match by one match kind of deal, I assume. And it would be like, oh fuck, where am I gonna put this match versus this match? And it was a pain in the ass, like thinking about it. And I kept just like shuffling stuff around, and this is where it ultimately ends up. Now, I think number 8 and number 9 for me are kind of interchangeable. I think Yoko Brett and Hogan Andre for me are kind of interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one just slightly edges out Yoko Brett purely for spectacle.
There it is.
I mean, it is the most iconic moment in wrestling.
Yeah, it's quite possibly the most iconic spot in wrestling history.
I went back and listened to episode 1, and we talk about, this is the classic-ist moment.
Yeah.
It is like the defining, like Hogan slamming Andre. I understand that it needs more context and stuff, but even like just looking at the sheer size of Andre the Giant, like it's one of those things where like you're like, how the fuck does someone do that?
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, the match is slow. Andre can't move, but I also, in the same way that Andrew really loves The Undertaker, I really love Andre the Giant.
Yeah. I see that. I feel that.
And so, like, for me, it was also the kind of thing where, like, I like, because it's Andre the Giant, it got moved up. If it was like, like Giant Gonzalez or a different just big man that Hogan slams, like, I feel like it would be rated lower. But because it's specifically Andre, and just the marvel that was Andre the Giant, the spectacle that was just Andre the Giant, you know, the eighth wonder of the fucking world, Andre the Giant, it bumps it up significantly for me.
Yeah, I kind of think I kind of agree with you to the extent that I think the singular spot of Hogan slamming Andre is this era of wrestling. Like, there's like, it's the thing from this era of wrestling. I
mean, like you mentioned, it was at the opening crawl for the WWE for decades.
It, as far as I'm aware, I would have to go back and like rewatch. Like my memory's not the best, as we might see as we continue through the show. But like, as far as I'm aware, it still is part of the opening intro for every WWE show ever.
It is still part of the intro, but like it was the very first moment in that intro. It was like, you know, the world is watching.
Yep, that's I was literally about to say. Like, the world is watching Hogan slams Andre, and it's like, yep.
That moment is so ingrained in me, like watching SmackDown, you know, in like 2008, 2009, and that was the moment that started every episode of SmackDown was Andre slamming Hogan.
That's backwards, but yeah. it's Hogan slamming Andre, but yeah.
yes. You know what I mean, though. It's just it is. It's the most iconic moment in all of wrestling.
Possibly.
And for me, that's why it's at number 8.
Yeah, and I think
if you put that moment in a vacuum and I was only rating that moment,
it'd be pretty high.
It'd be pretty higher than number 8.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if and I'll ask in a second, but as far as I'm concerned, it would probably be like a top 5. If we were talking about, especially from this era, if we were talking about individual spots, Hogan slamming Andre would definitely be top 5, if not top 1. And yeah, I think, like, I absolutely adore Andre the Giant forever. And so I don't disparage you for putting this one up high. If you're gonna put, I think, a Hogan match higher, it would be Hogan Andre. At least that's my opinion as like I've grown up a fan of wrestling. I'm interested to hear, Tyler, what do you think?
All right, what was the question?
Like, I'm talking about how I like Matt rated this Hogan match relatively. This is the only Hogan match that I'm aware of so far that's gonna break the top 10.
Yes, out of all of us, this is the only Hogan match in the top 10.
No, I don't have any of the. I don't have any of the spectacle for it really, or like the nostalgia for it.
Right, and I think that's the difference is that like me and Andrew grew up watching it.
Yeah.
So like I said, it was literally I turned on SmackDown and that's what I saw.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Moving on from the long.
Before we move on, it's not even that I feel like I grew up watching it, even though like it obviously I was shown it a whole bunch of times. I grew up being told to idolize this moment, like being told to be like, this is a huge thing that happened. And then like, as you grow up, you stop being like, I know that all the Hulk Hogan stuff happened. I care about what's happening now. And eventually you start to think about like, okay, let me like this is a genre of entertainment I'm interested in. Let me learn about its history and stuff. And like, but like you grow up being told that this was an iconic thing. And so I think that's why me and Matt feel so strongly about it. But when we grab Tyler and pull him in completely aside from that, this match is kind of fucking boring. Like, it's kind of its thing.
No, yeah, and I agree with that. I do. It is objectively a boring match, but that doesn't change how I feel about it, you know?
Yeah.
Now, my number 8 at the time, with 3 1/4 stars, was Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series 1992.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I was one of the people rated this one like the lowest.
Yeah.
At the time. There are so many better Bret Hart Shawn Michaels matches that we're gonna watch, and I'm so pumped to watch those. Now, Andrew, what's your number 7?
Number 7 is the Royal Rumble match. That's where I put this. I think I could potentially maybe 1 or 2 spots higher. I could understand, like, even if I like went back and redid it, I could understand if I swapped that up there. The Royal Rumble to me, like one of my favorite things in wrestling, period. And so this Rumble match to me is like, it's one of the better Royal Rumble matches as far as I'm concerned. But it's still, it's long and a little slow. Like, I feel like overall, I would put the Royal Rumble match top 5 of all around wrestling things. But if you're trying to rank quality of matches, there are especially few Royal Rumble matches that would rank much higher than this. Because of just the nature of the way that the stipulation works. It's one of the best things wrestling does, but it is also an hour of dudes cuddling in corners trying to shove each other over the top rope. That said, Ric Flair, great shtick for this whole thing. Like, it's a great match stipulation for Ric Flair, where he gets to come in. He's used to working 60-minute Broadways on like the indie circuit at the time, the non-WWF promotions at the time, and before this. And so he gets to showcase his cardio through the whole thing. He's pretty involved in the whole match. It's a great performance from him. All-time great Bobby Heenan commentary. It's not fucking fair to Flair. And like, I think it's a very good Royal Rumble match. It's not the best Royal Rumble match. But yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. Royal Rumble's always a lot of fun. And I'm already familiar, with a bunch of the guys that come through. Hogan, Sid, there's so many dudes in this match. Tito Santana's in here. He gets a good showcase. Shawn shows up. Bulldog shows up. Like, there's so many good dudes in this match. And so it's a fun time. But like I said, I feel like I would struggle to rank in terms of match quality Royal Rumble matches all that high. Yeah, it's really good when you're familiar with all the people, though.
I agree with that 100%. And honestly, so do you, because at the time, your number 7 match was the Royal Rumble 1992 with 3.5 stars. Andrew, you're on a streak.
What the fuck did I tell you guys? I'm so good at this. I'm the best. Hell yeah. I'm on point all the time. I do not miss. Disregard any further point on this match, on this list where I do miss, completely disregard it. I just got 3 in a row, baby. A hat trick of perfect guesses.
Not the goal of this, but I do.
Not the goal. Not your goal. My goal. I don't want to feel called out by my own numerical rating. I'm the GOAT. That's all I have to say. I'm the Bret Hart of, like, wrestling ranking lists.
With that said, number 7, Tyler Ostos. What do you got?
It's Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat.
Why?
Why?
It was, it's a vibe, kinda. To be honest, kind of a vibe. It was a fun match, I remember. I don't really care for either of them because we didn't watch much of them after this, I think. But to be honest too, I didn't know where to put it with relation to all the Bret Hart matches, and it wasn't a Hogan match. So this is kind of maybe where it fell a little bit.
The middle of
Kind of in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, the
It
middle
was
of
a match that we watched that I didn't have a bad vibe towards. So yeah.
the middle of Tyler's list is like matches that don't contain Bret Hart, but also don't contain Hulk Hogan.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Now,
Tyler, you're number 7 at the time.
It's gonna be bad.
Was Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 5 with 3.25 stars.
I felt like I probably gave it higher than. Yeah, that's too high.
I kind of agree. Yeah, I think it's too high.
It happens.
I think at the time it was more fun because you were on like the Hogan train, and it was fun to watch Savage. But then having seen where that concludes, it's not as fun in hindsight.
It's like partly to me, I wish, and I do have some Randy Savage coming up on the list still. I kind of wish Randy Savage was like a little bit younger. Like, I wish that Macho Man was instead of like playing part of Hulk Hogan's era of wrestling, I wish we were having like a main event scene of like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat. Like both of those guys, I think, would have been maybe like even better in like the kind of new generation era. I don't know if that's a hot take necessarily, but like, and granted, Ricky Steamboat up to a lot of good shit with like Ric Flair that we might watch later, as further context for other stuff, or as just like random episodes. But I kind of think Randy Savage is one of those guys where it's like it would have been better if he was in a higher work rate era than he was.
For sure. I understand that, for sure. Now, my number 7, Andrew, you're going to like.
Yeah.
Because it was the Royal Rumble 1992.
Woo! Me and Matt, dude.
Yeah, I mean, me and Andrew have both watched our fair share of Royal Rumbles.
Yeah.
It is like the most fun, a lot of the time, match of the year. And that you never know who's gonna show up, and you're always interested to see like what they kind of just like pull out for the Royal Rumble. Like the near elimination spots and all those things that we get in later Rumbles. I think this is one of those like this is a classic Rumble. People rank this, in like lists that you'll find online. People will rank this match as like the best Rumble. I don't necessarily agree with that because I think it's still missing a lot of the elements that make a really good Royal Rumble. Still, like it's still the Royal Rumble as a match concept is still very much in its early stages. But like having Flair go Broadway to win the WWF title, I think it was a great way to showcase him and his talents for getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yep.
The promo beforehand is great with him. The promo afterwards is just fantastic. The tear in my eye is just such a good promo. And like, even watching this Royal Rumble match without any context of Ric Flair, he's able to show you why you should hate him. If that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
he's really good at his shtick.
Yeah, he's able to earn your ire as a fan at like a base level, like as the actual. I'm just watching wrestling and observing the character dynamics. Sorry. He's also, in my opinion, he's able to earn, like, on an intellectual level, your respect. Where you're like, oh yeah, like you're like, I fucking hate Ric Flair. And then you also go, Ric Flair's shtick is trying to make me hate Ric Flair, and he's doing really well at that. Which is kind of why I think very highly of this Royal Rumble.
Yeah, it's a fun match for sure.
You had it at 8, and it kind of is in the same spot for all of us. I think it's like one of those that's just middle. It is like a middle of the road match compared to everything else that we've seen. Now, my at the time number 7 was Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. As you could tell, this match is rated higher for me now. I at the time gave it 3.5 stars, and I'll talk a bit more when we get there. But I think with more context, it just moves up. I think, you know. Andrew, why don't you start us off with number 6?
All right, my number 6. This is where I put Randy Savage versus Ric Flair. Again, my dad is proud of me. Ric Flair is pretty high. Yeah, I don't know. I thought this match was fun. Ric Flair and Randy Savage are both, like, for the time, like, pretty solid workers. There's a lot of really weird gender politics around this match. I don't like that Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect are trying to leak Miss Elizabeth's nudes. I'm glad they don't get to. I like the post-match beatdown is really funny because like they hold Macho Man down to let Ric Flair beat on him. Overall, I think it's pretty fun.
Crap out of him at the end, yeah.
Yeah, like overall, I think it's a pretty good time. I also laugh about like both post-match promos are like a little bit of like wow, they really did this kind of good, because it's like Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect are talking about how they've had like it's the like Red Dead 2, we've all had her, John, but you married her kind of bit. And then Randy Savage, the bit that I'll always laugh about is Mean Gene Okerlund, which shout out, by the way. Mean Gene Okerlund asking Miss Elizabeth how she feels about it, and then Randy Savage handing her the WWF title and going, take this and leave. Like, don't answer the question. Like, it's such a kind of strange, like, I don't really know how I feel about it. I know that I think I put it higher than everything else. I put higher than everything else I've had on this list so far. It's like, it's a very weird spot for me. But it was overall pretty good, you know? Pretty good as far as my more modern tastes are concerned. It's pretty good.
Now, Andrew.
Yeah.
The hits keep on coming.
Fuck yeah!
At number 6 at the time, Ric Flair versus Randy Savage, WrestleMania 8. 3 3/4 stars. Andrew, how you feeling?
I'm telling you, I'm the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. I'm the best wrestling ranker of all time. And by best, I mean most consistent, apparently. All my feelings are the same. Or not all, but most of my feelings are the same based on when we watched them.
Cultaholic, watch or what culture wrestling.
Yeah,
Andrew's coming for you.
All of you are called out. I am better at ranking wrestling than you guys are. Listen to this podcast, please. Actually, advertise this podcast, please. I beg you.
Now, Tyler, what's your number 6?
Before I get to that, I have a confession.
Mm-hmm.
This whole podcast has been making lo mein.
Oh, hell yeah.
It is now complete.
I've put off my dinner for this podcast. I'm eating as soon as it's over.
My lo mein is now complete, so I may now consume calories.
I'm so hungry.
Mine is Yokozuna and Bret Hart.
Nice.
Because I had a lot of fun with. I mean, granted, it was recent, but it was fun. And just maybe to tease the rest of this, it is the worst of the best of the Bret Hart matches so far.
Valid, honestly. I actually really love that you ranked this match so high. I'm very
it's a really fun match.
I respect that you ranked this match so high.
And you know what? Tyler's consistent because Yokozuna versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 9 was his at the time number 6 as well.
Hey, check it out.
Tyler, I mean, student of the game.
3.5 stars.
Someday you'll be like me, Tyler.
Mm-hmm. Every single one.
You'll rank all of your matches the same way you rated them, just like me.
It's unlikely because I live in the moment and I will say whatever comes to my mind.
Understandable.
Yes.
Now, my number 6 was the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation for Saturday night's main event 24. Now, I'm the first one to say this match.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see where you guys have it, but for me, I think it's a fun match, and this is the kind of thing we're getting to the territory of. All of these matches are really good.
Yeah.
And like on any given day, that they might be different, but for me today, that match was number 6. I just think that for me, some of the other matches on this list just were more of what I want in wrestling. Like, in terms of like a tag match, I feel like it's one of the only Bret Hart matches we get that like doesn't really have that much psychology behind it, if that makes sense. And I mean, it's kind of nothing match on Saturday night's main event. You know, the reason why we put this in here was because we wanted to watch the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation because it's integral to the story as we get into the new generation.
And relatively few of them are actually like available to watch with ease,
like, you know? Ideally the one we would have watched was the one where the Rockers beat the Hart Foundation for the WWF titles, but that one has been scrubbed from history.
Yeah.
But I think it's still, I mean, out of the 2 tag matches that we've watched, and out of every single multi-man match we've watched, because the Royal Rumble is under this, I think it's the best of those. And I'm just, it was one of those where it left me wanting more, which is good. Like, obviously, it's good that this match left me wanting more, but as a standalone match, that brings it down a few pegs for me. My number 6 at the time was Hulk Hogan versus The Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6, guys.
That's so high! That's so high!
Yeah, it turns out we were still missing a Hogan match from one of us, and it was for me.
Surprise!
Surprise! I think at the time, so I rated this at the time 3.5 stars. I think at the time, it was one of those where the spectacle at the time had me more enthralled, but like looking back on it, it just completely fell off the map for me.
Yeah, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think the 3 of us together had a good amount of fun watching Hogan Warrior. But like, and so like, I absolutely understand why you rated that relatively high. But yeah, that's putting a Hulk Hogan match that high, cringe. Imagine.
Oh, terrible.
Well, Andrew, why don't you start us off with
the top 5?
Booker T's Fave 5. Let's go.
All right.
That's
number 5.
That's a deep cut wrestling reference.
Yeah, that's a relatively deep cut. We'll get it's both a Booker T and T-Mobile reference.
Yeah.
Which I had T-Mobile at the time that the Fave 5 was a thing, by the way.
Same.
But yeah, so my number 5, barely cracking the top 5, which honestly, I'm disappointed by, is Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels Survivor Series 1992. I think they have better work coming. We all know that. By we all I mean me, Matt, and hopefully the people listening. But like I was kind of a little bit let down by this is sort of the first really high profile Bret versus Shawn match. And they do a lot of good stuff. I think Shawn has, at this point in time, a bit of a ways to go before he really comes into his own. Things that are illustrated by like the fact that like his like the Sweet Chin music's not as finished at the time. He's not singing his own theme song at the time. It's a big part of what I love about Shawn Michaels, but like you still see everything that they could be, but I just didn't quite feel like it got there. And so that's why it's number 5 and not anywhere higher. It cracks the top 5 because Bret and Shawn are 2 of the best to ever do it. But, like, I couldn't quite get past 5 for me.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, how does he do it? Because number 5 at the time was Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, Survivor Series 1992, with 3 3/4 stars.
I'm so good at this. Fuck yeah. I don't know why I put so much of my own value into the fact that my subjective match rankings, which are the ones I'll stand by harder. I think we'll maybe talk about that once we get to the end of everybody's lists. But I definitely put more stock in how I subjectively rate these matches now than like with the star ratings I gave them on the episodes. I don't know why I'm so proud of the fact that I'm so consistent. I'm so good at this. I have strong opinions about wrestling, I guess. They hold true no matter what. I'm the best at this. The king of guessing my own star ratings.
Now, Tyler. What's the first match of your top 5?
Suppose you would want me to rate my first match of my top 5.
What's
Mine
number 5?
is Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty.
Fair enough.
It was a good match. It was fun.
Yeah, good time.
Bret, as usual, kind of carries the match.
Bret's not in the match.
Wait, I'm sorry. Shawn Michaels kind of carried the match. I don't know why I said Bret.
Because you're accustomed to the idea of Bret Hart carrying a match.
It's because I'm high. No, that's why, guys. It's because I'm high. Shawn carried the match. Shawn's hair not as good as Bret's hair. So that's why he's not higher.
That might be a hot take. Because, even the Bret Hart mark of this show, I don't necessarily agree.
It's a hot take, but it is the correct take, unfortunately for you. So, the fact that I know it ends his career is kind of sad. But it at least concludes something, which I feel like you never get in wrestling, you know?
Yeah.
You never really get a conclusion. And the fact that this ended it, it's okay.
Yeah,
now,
it's
Tyler.
Pretty good.
Now, Tyler.
At
the time, you're number 5.
3.5
stars was Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series 1992.
Okay. It's fine.
I feel like there's not much to say about that.
Yeah.
Andrew kind of said it all about this match already.
Yeah, it's kind of why I'm kind of out of things to say.
Yeah. Now, my number 5. At number 5, for me, Matt Abalde. Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3.
Nice.
This match cracking into my top 5.
That makes sense.
In terms of the psychology, in terms of the planning of the spots, in terms of the storytelling, I think this is one of those matches that, like, if you are training to become a professional wrestler, you have to watch this match.
You're also a huge mark for Savage.
I am a pretty big mark for Randy Savage. That is correct.
I feel like it's almost hard not to be. Like, you don't have to be a mark to where you put like his Savage Steamboat in your top 5 necessarily, but like
I think I used to be a mark and now I'm not.
Savage.
Yeah, I think I was more and now I'm not.
Understandable.
Because we got Brett and Shaw.
Absolutely, baby. Hell yeah.
Why? I think that's why.
That's fair, to be honest.
Now, at the time, for me, at number 5 was the Royal Rumble 1992. It's I rated it 7. It's not. It was 5 at the time. That makes sense to me. You know.
Yeah.
It was 3.5 stars, so like it's kind of in that same like ballpark as Savage Steamboat was for me. So it's like it's one of those that it can move around a lot. Yeah. Now, Andrew, carry us on number 4.
All right. I left a long pause because I have to pee really bad. So I'm gonna do that right now, and so we can cut this whole bit. I promise I will come back and be able to have it edited into a way that makes sense. I have to pee really bad. Please don't save any of this, Matt. Cut it all.
No, this guitar.
We need to make this content now.
He
so
says,
we can't cut it.
But who's buying? Peace out. Here, I'll just sing the whole time. But who's buying? Sing a song.
Andrew, do you want, or Tyler? Sorry, you're not Andrew, you're Tyler.
Yeah.
Did you want to watch Ric Flair's last match tonight or no?
Oh, not tonight. I won't be able to make it through. I'm way too high. I'm way too crossed. I will fall asleep.
It does technically go Broadway.
What does that mean? It's over an hour?
If you start from the entrances, it is an hour.
Oh. I'm kind of happy we didn't stream it. It was kind of, from what I saw on Twitter, it was kind of fucked.
Yeah.
Man's 75 years old and he's fucking bleeding. He's fucking blading.
Yep.
Or arguably potentially not even blading and just actually just cracking his skull open.
I think the funniest shit was the Undertaker in the audience.
Yeah.
It's just like clearly disappointed.
You made pizza? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Andrew's mom made pizza, guys.
Yeah, my mom made pizza. Again, none of this should be actually in the podcast. All right. My number 4.
We're back.
My number 4 wrestling match that we've covered so far on the show. This is where I put Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat, WrestleMania 3. To parrot what Matt just said about it, basically, again, I think the psychology is great. The fact that, like, the way that you can kind of tell it was planned from start to finish, I think the pace of it's really good. I think it's a really well-paced match. Obviously, both guys are pretty talented workers, which is an understatement. It's just like a decently exciting, like, it's one of those things where it's like, I think we kind of talked about it on the episode as like a bit of a rare gem amongst all of the like late 80s, early 90s wrestling. Of like, this is in terms of what's like well shot and recorded for things like pay-per-view or television in like the late 80s, early 90s. Like, there's obviously not that much of like Steamboat Flair and all that kind of stuff. And so this is one of those things where you're like, you catch a glimpse of what the future of wrestling looks more like. Because this match is what inspires, like, we endlessly talk about how things that Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, and Bret Hart were all doing at this time that is like the original foundation of what current wrestling is. And to me, the most exemplary match of that is Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat. And so that's why I put it at a number 4. That's why it's in the top 5. After this, there's a bunch of matches that I think I subjectively like a good deal more than Savage Steamboat. I think Savage Steamboat, absolutely ahead of its time. Better than literally anything Hulk Hogan did in his almost entire career. It's a building block upon which mansions were constructed, castles were constructed. But there's still a little bit to be desired, you know. I think there's still there's like, they're both, you know, crazy workers, but it's not quite the work rate of like Bret and Shawn even. It's still one of those things where it's just like both of these guys were clearly ahead of their time. I think both Savage and Steamboat would have been even better if they were younger and wrestling in the same era of their prime as Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. I think if those 4 guys, that's one fucking hell of a main event scene. Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. If they were all in their prime, it would have been absolutely incredible wrestling, fucking pillar to post. But I don't feel like I can necessarily put Savage Steamboat too much higher than 4.
That's fair enough. And Andrew,
Yeah?
can you guess what match you put in at number 4?
Is it Savage Steamboat?
Is it Savage
Steamboat? I'm the best. I'm so good. I'm doing the Hulk Hogan like ear pose, like the let me hear you all cheer. Let me do the Hulk Hogan poses real quick to myself in my own room. Nobody can see it. There's no visual component to this podcast. Fuck Hulk Hogan, but I'm doing all his poses.
Tyler, what's your number 4?
Fuck, what is it? It is. Can you guess?
Is it Savage Steamboat?
No, it's not.
I don't even remember. You put Savage Steamboat higher.
That was lower. It's because I've lost my fucking thing. Number 4, Bret Hart versus the Maniac, Roddy Piper.
Ah, that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like we're in that area where the top 4. I feel like the matches in the top 4 are pretty, like, for sure. It's just the placement of them, I think, is interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely, we're in, I think the top 5 is definitely the most subjective of like everything.
For sure.
You know?
Now, sorry, Tyler, I cut you off. What were you gonna say?
Fuck, what was I gonna say? I just feel like you kind of gotta respect the man because, like, he's kind of a legend and he kind of had a sad end to his, you know, like his life. So yeah, and it was a good match. It was fun.
It was a really good match.
Like I think at the time we said that like it was given the respect it deserved, which you don't get like see that much in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the time, Tyler, what you rated at number 4 though was Randy Savage versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8. Which was significantly lower this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a testament to the fact that, like, at the time that because, you know, like, Matt, you talked about how, aside from any times we had seen these matches beforehand, me and Matt watched these matches twice for the show. but Tyler doesn't. Tyler only watches them for like the recording of the show. And so it's kind of a testament to the fact that Tyler had more fun with Savage Flair when we watched it than he remembers it being fun.
Yeah.
Which I think is a fun illustration of the impact that like watching wrestling with friends can have on wrestling. I think wrestling's almost always better with friends. Like most things are. Yeah. Matt, what was your number 4?
My number 4 was the British Bulldog versus Bret Hart at Wembley Stadium, SummerSlam 1992.
That's interesting.
So for me, it's number like obviously it's higher for you guys because you guys haven't mentioned this match yet.
Yep.
For me, it's at number 4 purely because of what it could have been. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of get it.
Bret carries this match, and it's really good. I think the other matches on my...
Bret carries every match, basically. But yes.
Oh, yeah. That's my boy.
That's right.
I think of, like, the top 4 Bret matches that I kind of have... Or no, not every match in my top 4 is a Bret match. Sorry. Of the top 4 matches that I have, I think this is very solidly number 4. I think this is like one of those where like it kind of stays at number 4. I think the top 3 change around a lot for me, but I think this is very solidly a little under what the rest of the top 3 are for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, like I said, it leaves me wanting to see what would have happened. You know, it's such a good match, and I wish Bulldog was all there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, number 4 for me at the time was Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper with 4 stars. I have this match higher.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about it when we get to it. Andrew, number 3.
Number 3 for me, which is interesting because we just talked about it. My number 3 is British Bulldog versus Bret Hart, SummerSlam 1992.
You know who else is?
Is it Tyler? Is it also your number 3?
It's also my number 3.
Which also I'll wager. I don't know yet, and we don't need to talk about it yet because I still have thoughts to share on the match. But I'll wager that this might be where I break with my own star ratings. But I kind of agree with you, Matt, that the reason why I put this at number 3 and not any higher is because it feels very clearly when you watch it, especially when you watch it having known the backstory, it feels very clearly carried by Bret Hart. Which I'm all for, because Bret's the GOAT. And that's kind of why I feel like I put it... Matt, you're the Sean guy, so when Bret carries a match, you put it at number 4. But for me, when Bret has to carry a whole ass match, it's at least number 3 material. I loved this match. I loved the crowd. One of the biggest things going forward, Tyler, that you'll definitely learn is that a hot crowd can make a decent match great. And this match was good and made pretty phenomenal by the fact that this crowd was hot as fuck for the British Bulldog. They popped super loud, especially when you consider the fact that the crowd wasn't mic'd at the time. They were so loud. They're possibly one of the loudest crowds of all time. And I love when wrestling has a hot crowd. British Bulldog, despite the fact that Bret's calling the entire match to him and he doesn't really know what's going on until it happens, he's absolutely pulling his weight. Davey Boy's doing great in this match. Bret is in rare form. Bret is in, like, when you call Bret the GOAT, this is the kind of match you're thinking of, where Bret has to be...
He totally carries the match. Like, even, like, when he's, you know, like, when, like, the, like, spots where, like, you know, like, he's supposed to be, like, you know, like, hurt and stuff, like, he, like, even carries those. Like, he's so good in this match.
Yeah, that's my thing. He's, like, literally it's like Michael Jordan levels of once in a generation. Like nobody's as good as Bret Hart. He like you said, even when he's being when British Bulldog is in the driver's seat of the match, kayfabe speaking, you can still tell that it's Bret Hart's thing. And that's like an insane level of talent in professional wrestling. And so that's kind of why I put it at number 3. There's still 2 more matches that I like more. But it's absolutely an iconic ass match.
Now, Andrew, you are correct from before. This is where you start to break away. Your number 3 at the time was the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation Saturday Night's Main Event 24 with 4.25 stars.
I think I might be able to read at least slightly where the rest of my list is ending up in terms of which, to be fair, I get to process of elimination based on the fact that I've gotten so many right so far. I'm the king of wrestling. That's true,
yeah.
Put it here first. Andrew, king of wrestling, right here.
Fuck yeah. Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli, fuck you. I'm the king of wrestling.
Yeah.
Tyler, what's your number 3?
It's my turn?
Yeah,
no, wait, we just said my number 3. It was British Bulldog. Yeah. Bret Hart it's great.
Oh, it's my turn.
Fun. It's your turn.
It's my number 3.
I mean, like, I kind of went at the same time as Andrew because,
let's give Tyler. Give some opportunity. I said a lot already. Expand on whatever you feel like you might want to say. That's
the match where like you realize that whoever he fights, he makes look good. Like it's that match where it's like you can't have a bad Bret match because he'll make you be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so Tyler, the match that you rated number 3 before was Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper, which you rated at number 4 this time.
Okay.
So a little swap there. Now my number 3 was Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels Survivor Series 1992.
I can't begrudge you that.
It's a good match. It's not the best Shawn Bret match, but it's still damn good. And it's as a Shawn mark, that's I'm not gonna lie, as a Shawn mark, it does drive the rating up a little bit more.
I could tell.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's not a lot to say about this match that hasn't already been said. I think it's for sure Shawn's best match of like this era before we get to the new generation. And it's always one of those where Bret Hart doesn't have to carry someone the whole match. Like Shawn Michaels is able to go blow for blow, hold for hold with Bret Hart, and it shows. And it just makes me more excited to see what, with a little bit more time and a little bit more experience, how this match changes. Number 3 at the time for me, Randy Savage versus Ric Flair. 4 stars. I have it rated higher. That's all I'm going to say about it. I have this match rated higher now.
It's kind of lame, to be honest. Oh, sorry. Conflicting opinions from the co-host.
Like I said, I'm the kind of person as a human being where like I said, kind of a lot of the back half, like the non-Hogan parts of this list to me are very subjective. Like I almost wouldn't begrudge anybody rating any of the non-Hogan matches that we've watched so far, like even up to number 1. And that's just kind of me. That said, I don't necessarily agree. Obviously, I had like Savage Flair lower than you do. But yeah, I definitely, you know what? I'll change my mind. You're cringe.
Wow. Okay.
I'll side with Tyler now.
Bringing the boiling back. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Me and Andrew are going to start, all right?
Let's tar and feather Matt for putting Savage Flair high.
Oh, that could be racist. Could be racist, potentially.
Yeah, white people.
Yeah, us white people tar and feathering.
Yeah, it'd be weird. Maybe let's just kill him.
Our Argentinian friend, our Ecuadorian friend.
Let's just kill him, all right? Instead.
Yeah, let's just kill him. That's better.
Just like a standard killing, not like a tar and feathering.
Not like a prolonged.
Yeah, exactly. Just like a regular one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew, what's your number 2?
Oh, yeah, we're doing that.
My number 2, to circle back around to it, I already am like I said, my memory is full of fucking cigarette burn holes. So I don't know if I'm actually right about this. I think I'm the highest person to put this match. My number 2 is the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation.
Who?
I love that match.
Mine has not come
and
up
I still love that match. Okay. But yeah, I put Rockers versus Hart Foundation at number 2. Tag matches are always going to be really strong work rate matches, comparative. Not always, I guess, but like when you have 2 really good tag teams against each other, it's gonna be like a more exciting work rate than a lot of the time even 2 really good single stars like British Bulldog and Bret Hart. And so you got like the Rockers, when they're good together, I think that's where, obviously, I mean, in terms of all time, that's where Marty Jannetty shines, is in the Rockers. And, like, that's where you really appreciate his work. On top of, you get to appreciate Jim Neidhart. On top of both Bret and Shawn being in that match. I even loved it down to the dusty-ass finish that leaves you wanting more, because it feels smartly booked. It's like, yep, both of these guys are kind of the 2 dudes who are up against Demolition. Demolition comes out. Everything kind of falls apart. Who's really better, the Rockers or the Hart Foundation? You don't get to know right now. It's all up in the air. I think it was exciting up until the end. I had a really great time watching it. It was so good.
Now, Andrew.
Yep.
Number 2 at the time.
Yep.
Was the British Bulldog versus Bret Hart SummerSlam 1992 with 4.5 stars.
Understandable.
So you got those 2 switched.
Yep, I got them switched. And I feel that.
Yeah.
I could interchange them if like you sat me down, I might start him and Han over what's number 2 and number 3, but they're both in that range for me.
That's fair enough. Tyler, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. From what I remember, this match was the start of kind of like high-flying wrestling, it felt like a little bit.
A little bit.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, not like high-flying, but like, it, there was more... So like it like marked a shift for sure in switching from like Hogan style stuff to this kind of stuff. Like it was for sure like a like very like marked change. Mm-hmm. And it felt like these 2 like Bret and Shawn were kind of like built for each other, Like the like whole match felt that way. And the fact that and I think potentially the hype that I've been hearing maybe made me put it like higher, is that this is gonna be like the whole like new era of it, but I'm kind of like pumped to see it though, is the thing. So like I think with the fact that I have the like like the the like thought that this is what like what we're gonna keep seeing, I think that's potentially why it's so high, is that I'm pumped to see more of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely understand that.
You'll get it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna see it.
It's like ultimately speaking, I think you can divide everybody in wrestling today into 4 separate categories, at least one of which we haven't quite gotten to yet.
Hulk Hogan, no.
Yeah, like literally, you can divide like modern wrestling into 4 categories. Guys that are like Hogan, guys that are like Austin, which we haven't gotten to, but we will. Fuck yeah, we will. Guys that are like Bret and guys that are like Shawn. Those are your 4. With the rare ones that sit kind of outside all of those. I definitely understand why Brett and Sean would be this high.
Now, your actual number 2, Tyler, at the time was the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation Saturday Night's Main Event 24 with 4.25 stars.
That's very interesting. So that's very interesting.
It's still Brett and Sean. I mean, like, ultimately.
You could literally argue, like, the notes that you gave for Brett versus Sean could just be transferred to that match, too.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I mean, like, yeah, that, and, like, the fact that it's, like, a tag match means that there is, like, you know, less downtime and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Now, my number 2 was the Rockers versus... Oh, nope, I'm incorrect. Sorry. I was reading from the wrong list. My number 2 was Randy Savage versus Ric Flair WrestleMania 8.
Talk about this.
I think it's
Explain
almost
yourself.
the perfect match.
Expand on that.
How so? Yeah.
I mean, it's two of the best who have ever done it, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically the same talking notes from Savage Steamboat for me, but higher in terms of the psychology, the ring work, and all of that. I think it's a masterclass of how to work a crowd. It's a masterclass of just technical wrestling. It's a masterclass of just it's once again it's a match you have to watch if you want to be a wrestler. I think the only match I think so far that does a better job at working the crowd is the match that I have a number 1, which we'll get to. Is that a satisfactory answer for you guys?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I think most of the post Hogan stuff, like, I would definitely, like, you could have put Savage Flair at 1, and I would be like, I don't necessarily agree, but, like, I kind of get where you're coming from. It kind of depends to me on, like, 2 things. One, how into Ric Flair and his whole thing you are, which I'm not either the most or the least into Ric Flair. And then also, I think Tyler might feel the same way as me on this. How much Brett and Sean have kind of tainted your taste for Randy Savage.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, not to say that I don't like Savage. Savage is amazing. He's one of the best to ever do it. But, like, I do think Savage is one of those things where it's almost like, to me, and this might be a hot take to people listening too, it's almost like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where it's like everything's like there's so much stuff after this that references it that if you've watched all that stuff first and you watch Monty Python, you're like, yeah, I kind of get where this comes from, but, like, I don't know if I like this more than all the other stuff I've already seen. And so that's kind of where I'm at on the Savage Flair match.
That's fair.
And then
enough.
also, you know, the whole like sexism, like wrestling sexism of the 90s, like that. That's
sexism is not okay.
Not okay. But, like, you know, it's I feel like the Savage Flair feud and match is in that, like, it was a different era and therefore maybe a bit forgivable. And so I get why you put it up here.
Yeah. Now, my number 2 at the time was the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation Saturday Night's Main Event 24. Yeah, this match kind of fell a little bit for me just because of the non-definitive end. And, like, I understand why it made Andrew like it more.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it just wasn't. I wanted to see one of those teams win so badly.
Yeah.
You know.
You want to watch Sean pin Brett, don't you?
I do. I really
Fuck
do.
You.
Now, Andrew, what's your number one match?
My number one match we've watched so far, I'm so elated to say, is Bret Hitman Hart versus Roddy Piper. Fuck yeah, this match. It's such a well-told story between two of the best. Even if Roddy Piper, not necessarily known as one of the better workers all time, but he holds his own. Bret obviously can carry empty space to a great match. It's such a well-told story, such a great passing of the torch moment, which I'm a mark for Bret Hart. So when Bret Hart gets handed the torch and is like, yeah, you're one of the top guys right now, definitively, I'm all for it. Roddy Piper's great. He's not necessarily heel at the time, but boy is he leaning that way because he just can't put Bret Hart away. And that whole story of him picking up the ring bell and really thinking about it, all of that stuff is so well done. It's such a great self-contained one wrestling match story. Oh, it's so good. The pre-match promos where Bret and Roddy are talking to each other, and Piper's like, "I knew you since you were knee high to a grasshopper." I was like, "Oh, it's such a good WrestleMania match. It's so great." Honestly, probably well within my top 10 matches all time. I'm such a fan of this match.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I'm sure you know by now, based on process of elimination.
Yep.
Your number one match at the time with 4.5 stars was Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper.
Absolutely.
And now I'm gonna actually jump the gun and do mine right now, because my number one match was also Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper, WrestleMania 8. Now, what I said about Randy Savage versus Ric Flair, where I said my number one match actually works the crowd better. Yeah, it's the best crowd work in wrestling history, I think.
Possibly, quite possibly.
I mean, Piper holding the bell is such a reference moment in the future of wrestling. This passing of the torch of two work rate guys for the Intercontinental Championship was amazing. The fact that this also just happened for the Intercontinental Championship is crazy.
Yeah.
And the fact that was Piper's only Intercontinental Championship reign is also crazy. And it's so interesting, kind of to pull back the curtain a little bit. It's really interesting to have this match for me and Andrew at number one, because when we had originally come up with the match list, this match wasn't on the match list.
I had to pitch it to Matt, right?
Yeah, see, because we have one more Roddy Piper match. I'm going to spoil just a little bit. We're going to have one more Roddy Piper match later down the line. And I was telling Andrew, man, I'm bummed that we're not going to get to really show Tyler Roddy Piper at his prime, because...
And I said, watch him wrestle Bret.
Yeah, and God, what a good suggestion of a match. This is such a good match. My number one at the time, however, was British Bulldog versus Bret Hart, SummerSlam 92.
Absolutely fair as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these matches, it just depends on your mood at the day, how it's gonna be, I think. You know?
Yeah.
Now, I decided to save a differing opinion for last here.
That's me.
Mr. Young Lion, Mr. Ostos, what do you have at number one?
I got the Rockers versus the Hart Foundation.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all for it.
It's kind of everything that I said about Bret and Shawn, but it's just there's just extra, because there's less time for them to rest, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like all action, and it's two teams who you want to see beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, and dude, Jim Neidhart. is so good too.
He's so good.
We see Jannetty and Michaels and Bret Hart in singles matches later, and we don't really get to see much of Jim Neidhart outside of the Hart Foundation. We'll probably touch back on the Hart Foundation at some point. We'll get to see Jim Neidhart again. But, like, what one of the best fucking big men of all time. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I
He's
think
phenomenal.
For sure the most underrated big man of all time. I don't think people realize how good Jim Neidhart was. Like, I think people associate with this era of big men guys like Vader, and Bad Man Bigelow, and not to disparage those guys. Those guys are great, but Jim Neidhart needs to be in the conversation with those guys. He's such a phenomenal big man. Now to wrap it up, Tyler's at the time. You said that you're at, with 4.5 stars, that your number one match was the British Bulldog versus Bret Hart.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is, it's one of those where everyone's top 3 is kind of interchangeable a lot of the time. You know, it's about your mood at the time. How did you guys feel about this exercise?
I mean, I loved it. I think going forward, my favorite episodes of this show are probably always going to be when we do the like roundup top list of everything. I definitely had a very good time doing this. I'm so glad about all this wrestling we got to watch. Wrestling's great.
Wrestling is so fucking good.
Shout out to, as like my final thoughts. I know I told Matt this when I pitched the idea of doing like a roundup episode for this era. I want to give shout outs to all of the people outside the ring that really made this era great.
Gotta salute the following, like Mr. Jesse Ventura.
Gotta salute, dude, Jesse Ventura, Gorilla Monsoon, absolutely. Almost undisputed commentary goat.
Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Our main man, Mean Gene. Let me tell you something, Mean Gene. The absolute, like, unironically, as much as I said possibly undisputed commentary goat, Gorilla Monsoon, undisputed absolute ring announcer goat, Howard fucking Finkel.
He's so good.
Absolutely. Like, everybody doing that. Jim Ross showing up near the end. Like, everybody doing all that stuff. Big shout outs to everybody.
I think more so than anything, learning the ropes has given me a greater appreciation for commentary.
Yeah.
That's
my thing.
Speed running through it and hearing from the Brain and Jesse Ventura, and then listening to, and of course it's currently in, you know, recording of the podcast. We're entering a new era of WWE. So who knows what commentary will sound like, but like, if you tried to watch Monday Night Raw like a couple weeks ago, it's rough to listen to
a bit. Yeah, and it's just one of those things where for me, I wanted to take this time because this podcast is ultimately going to be about the work that goes on between those ropes, but everybody on the outside, down to like referees, like this is where
the Hebners
should like pull a whole bunch of really great work out, like all of that stuff, like all the people that, like, aside from guys like Hogan, Savage, Flair, Steamboat, Brett and Shawn, even, all of those, like, all of the people that bust their ass to sell you the import of what the wrestlers are doing, is not to be ever understated. And on top of that, just amongst some of the worst wrestling all time, there's some of the best wrestling all time. Yeah. And I can't fail to appreciate that.
Now, this is going to be a little surprise segment. Andrew doesn't know I'm doing this.
What the fuck?
So, we are mostly a reaction podcast. and I felt like we need something to react to this episode. So I've pulled up something for all of us to react to. It's a short little clip.
Is it gonna be a
4
dick pic?
minutes.
What the fuck are we watching?
If it's a dick pic, I'm leaving.
Oh my god! Stand back! Ah!
Oh, hang on.
I figured we needed to leave the rock and wrestling era in fantastic fashion with the most rock and wrestling moment of wrestling
Possibly.
history. We're going to watch Stand Back live at the 37th Annual Slammy Awards in 1987.
Good Christ.
We're back.
And with Stand Back done, legendary.
I think I might quit the podcast.
Tyler, as Vince McMahon says, as we finish the rock and wrestling era, stand back, because we are onward and upward to better things with giant question marks as we head forward into, again alongside rock and wrestling, some of the best and some of the worst.
The new generation.
Generation.
Well, see you guys next week when we're back with Season 2 of Learning the Ropes. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Tyler, you got anything else to add?
I got nothing this week.
Oh, I got something. I tell you what, Sheiky baby, fuck the Hulk Hogan. I'm so glad we're done.
That's the end.
That's the end. Oh, yeah.
Guys, that was 3 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that episode's gonna be necessarily long. I fully expect